In a week where we've already talked about the potential last stop for GameStop, EA continues to circle the drain in terms of an investor's outlook, as many companies are now dubbing the company a flat-out avoid. If you've been following the stocks with EA and other gaming companies, you'll see that they're basically all down this year in terms of, well, the entire space. The entire water level has dropped this year as well. Gaming is one of the biggest drops. But now there's a lot more reason around why EA's stock is flat out a void, according to many investors. This is very bad for EA having this sort of label, and there are a lot of reasons for it. Well, I'm going to go through them, specifically the ones that maybe need a little more in-depth, because a lot of this coverage is coming from a financial perspective. But us as regular folks or people who play video games will be able to understand almost everything that's going on. The most damning piece of evidence, I think, is the fact that there's been significant insider selling, meaning, when you have stock options inside the company, you have an option to buy or sell. That's often a part of your compensation package. We saw this at Blizzard. Now, it's not uncommon for people inside of companies to both buy and sell throughout the years. For example, I had stock options in the first company I worked for. I sold them to pay for college, one particular bill of college. So, and it didn't really have anything to do with what was going on at the company. I had my own needs for the money. All right. There have been situations where I buy, stock options come up and you always buy because you're getting at a discounted rate, but not always has it has anything to do with the main company. But I will tell you, when you have a trend where basically everybody's dumping, that's an interesting indicator of what's going on with the company. So I want to go to this article by Seeking Alpha, which is an investment, a website that wrote in a lengthy piece covering EA right now. And I'm going to skip around in it a little bit because it is quite long and it is kind of nerdy. But essentially, avoid EA. The fun is about to end. This is speaking to capital or investors, of course. A significant profit source for EA is quickly being declared illegal around the world. This is meaning in reference to loot boxes, which we talked about just the other day. Now, is that a little hyperbolic? Yes. However, Belgium will continue to set the standards, and as more European countries roll into this and make loot boxes illegal or demand some sort of regulation, there will be building pressure in the West, specifically in the United States, to follow suit. We've already seen with the absolute absurd loot box predatory standards from Battlefront 2 has started to get the government involved. Like, EA is literally asking for it. EA's customer neglect is driving down demand for games, leading to heavy discounting for many of its new releases after launch. Let's take, for example, the latest Battlefield, Battlefield 5. That game we saw deeper than 50% off before Christmas even. EA's mismanagement of valuable IP, causing significant shareholder value destruction. This is, I believe, referring to their mismanagement of the Star Wars franchise and only releasing maybe 2 games in the past decade, one of which nearly got the government involved in their loot box scams. Insiders are selling stock heavily. Why would they do that if they believe the price appreciation is likely? Again, I would say that most people, in my experience, that have stock options don't necessarily understand the stock market. But when you have literally every transaction from an insider at EA being of the selling variety, that's probably not a good sign. They are reading the writing on the wall and cashing out before it bottoms out. EA currently should be avoided, though if it appreciates significantly, it may make for a good short, meaning if it comes back, maybe you should short it because you know it's going to fall anyway, right? EA is popular, has been popular long, at least on Seeking Alpha. due to its low valuation and strong digital revenue growth. However, consumer sentiment paints a different picture. EA's strong value and profit growth is coming from the erosion of EA's most valuable asset, customer trust. What they're saying here is that people are tired of being taken advantage of, and that is going to lead to the devaluation of a lot of these predatory tactics that made them good as an investment opportunity. This is obviously not sustainable in the long run. EA also faces severe headwinds in many areas like the regulation of loot boxes and competition from emerging game developers armed with free-to-play games. EA, even as current low valuation, is not a bargain and may make a good short if it appreciates significantly. Now, we're not going to go over their overview of the price earnings statements because that is just simply boring. I do like how they mix in memes here. EA makes a game without loot box systems so outrageous that lawmakers are beginning to seriously look at them as gambling. I reread that. I read that. EA makes a game with loot boxes so outrageous that lawmakers are beginning to seriously look at them as gambling. That's referring to Battlefront 2, I believe. Now, this is talking about the loot box ban in Belgium and several other countries, and they list the countries here that are on this same gaming commission. You've got Austria, the Czech Republic, France, Gibraltar, Ireland, Isle of Man, Jersey, Latvia, Malta, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Washington State, that's an important one, and the UK. This is not the end of loot box regulation. However, the US's own FTC has started investigating loot boxes, which could eventually lead to a loot box ban in the US. Government regulators are not the only ones clamping down on loot boxes. However, mobile distributors like Apple are also joining the war against loot boxes. Since game companies like EA are fully dependent on these distributors to sell their games, they have no choice but to yield. The risk fully outlined in EA's 10K. They state, moreover, here's the risk assessment, right? Moreover, certain of our channel partners can determine and change unilaterally certain key terms and conditions, including the ability to change their user and developer policies and guidelines. In many cases, our channel partners also set the rates at which we must pay to provide our game and services through their online channels. They're talking about the app stores here, or maybe similar items, distribution. And retain flexibility to change their fee structures or adopt different fee structures for their online channels, which could adversely impact our cost, profitability, and margins. In addition, our channel partners' control of the information technology systems through which online sales of our products and service channels are captured. If channel partners establish terms that restrict our offerings through their channels, significantly impact the financial terms on which these products or services are offered to our customers, or their information technology systems fail. So what they're basically saying here is, if the App Store or if Google Play says easy on these microtransactions, we have no choice. Now, I want to go to essentially the insider information because that is most interesting. Now, because this is a financial report, they're spending obviously a significant amount of time talking about loot boxes, but they've also, EA is well known for inserting microtransactions into fully priced games, releasing unfinished games, and changing them for the remaining content, charging them for the remaining content later, and all sorts of other sins that have made EA unpopular with gamers. This has caused lower perceptions of EA's products and can be seen in EA's general Metacritic scores. EA has terrible NPS of -7, and EA's 10K, they highlight this risk. Below, we will show how EA's greedy actions have led to a slow erosion in player trust in its most major franchises, which we believe led to the decline in sales in the mid to long term. And they talk about FIFA here with their, ultimate teams and their sports. Here's a quote: EA is pissing off the casual players and at the same time pissing off the pro players. The service is absolutely just a mess right now. The gameplay is inconsistent as anything. The pay-to-win aspects are so insane that it's actually incredible. Nothing is consistent with the game right now. I think every single one of them, developers, should be sacked. Well, I don't know. The developers probably don't have any part in that, to be honest with you. But I think the train of charging full price. Now they have to discount these games. FIFA We're talking about Battlefront here. Now, EA's mismanagement of Star Wars franchise, they talk about that. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is so abhorrent that reportedly Disney themselves contacted EA to ask EA to remove microtransactions. EA doesn't appear to have learned their lesson. However, recently EA canceled yet another Star Wars game, leading to massive player backlash. This is despite only having released 2 Star Wars games. If the previous 6 years are any indication, the next 4 years will be dismal as well. Yikes. And they also talk about then competition is closing in on basically their cash cows like Battlefield and Call of Duty getting caught up. And now here's where we're going to get to the insider stuff. Dubious tactics, denying valid refunds. This was a controversy we all talked about earlier this year. EA seems to be resorting to the dubious tactic to boost revenue at the expense of customer trust. Many buyers who have pre-ordered or bought the game seem unable to get refunds. They are not purely anecdotal either, as many of these buyers have proof of their conversations with EA. I wonder if they're talking about my video. Well, maybe. For example, one Battlefield 5 buyer who pre-order was unable to cancel his pre-order. Another Star Wars Battlefront buyer shared a story on Reddit that got 10,000 upvotes. This tactic potentially exposes EA to lawsuits and further destroys customers' goodwill. See, that's the thing, right? You have one customer, you hose one customer, but in the internet era, you can post something to Reddit. The fact that it got 10,100 upvotes means probably 50,000 or 100,000 people might have seen that actual post. Okay, so you are talking about a lot of bad will. Now, significant insider selling. This is what I talked about earlier. The table shows the most recent insider activity at EA. This has to be tracked publicly. As you can see, pretty much no insiders have bought, and insiders have been selling all the way down. We believe this means executives have a dismal view of EA's future and are trying to flee before the stock depreciates even further. And you can see this long list, basically the CEO, COO, operations, HR directors, HR. These are all selling. By the way, look at the money they're extracting. You can't tell me. You have the CEO extracting 700,000. Then you got the CEO extracting 670,000, 200,000. Then you got Andrew Wilson extracting 750,000. So we extracted 700,000 here, 759,000 here. You've got some extractions of 1 million, 2.3 million, 1 million. I mean, these are huge market extractions. And again, it's not necessarily indicative, but you're talking about C-level people. You're not talking about, like when I had stock options, I was just an hourly employee, or well, I was salary, but I was lowly. I didn't have access to our financial data. These people are all C-level or directors. They know exactly what's going on. And to top it off, Anthem not looking good. Things are not looking good for EA's future. Anthem, EA's next AAA release, which we're going to talk about in our 1:30 video, 1 o'clock video today, is already having server issues according to Polygon. So far, Anthem hasn't alienated players as much as EA's other releases, but EA's terrible reputation exacerbated last year's releases could put a damper on Anthem sales. Of course it will. Of course it will. This has scared some players who believe that EA will excessively monetize the final version of Anthem. Yikes. Even if Anthem is successful, we doubt EA will show much growth considering its past releases like Battlefield 5 and FIFA 19 are not selling well. Things to look for before initiating selling a short position. I'm not going to go into that. Well, we talked about a gaming crash, and I think I was correctly corrected by a viewer who talked about maybe this is really not necessarily a crash, but a reorganization or a adjustment period where these companies were just living high off the hog for too long, and now the market's correcting. Consumers have had enough, and EA is not looking good. We're going to have to see if more companies leave EA. I would predict we might see that sort of thing, having BioWare dip out, or some of the studios that they've purchased dip out, go out on their own. We're going to want to watch this in 2019, but I would be willing to predict that there may be some serious changes going at EA this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.